So here's a big video that I think a lot of you will enjoy. And I hope you've been loving this series that I have of the behind the scenes novels of, how episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, 4, 5, and 6 were made. If you do, please do leave a big like on this video. It really helps the channel out and it encourages me to continue making more because I want everyone to know this information. Now, George Lucas explains why the Force created Anakin Skywalker. The real meaning of balance. And this is going to put out a lot of fires out there with incorrect information on this topic. When George Lucas wrote the prequels, he wasn't just telling the story of Anakin, he was explaining the will of the Force itself. For George, Star Wars was never about good versus evil, it was more about balance and choices, the struggle to keep light and dark in harmony. Now, in the making of The Phantom Menace, George said that the Force had to be treated as a living, conscious energy, something that reacts when it's pushed too far in one direction. The Force itself has a will, George explained. It tries to restore balance when it's out of balance. That's what the prophecy of the Chosen One is about. By the time of The Phantom Menace, the Force had been unbalanced for centuries. The Jedi thought the dark side was gone. They thought peace was permanent. But underneath, the imbalance was already there. Not because of evil, but because of denial. The Jedi lost their way, George said. They believed they could control the Force, and that's not balance, that's domination. That domination is what summoned the Chosen One. Now, a lot of people think that Plagueis created Anakin. That's actually not true. So Plagueis and Palpatine influenced the midichlorians in the Force to create a perfect dark side entity. The Force answered back to them by saying, "You don't control us. You don't tell the Force what to do." And so it created the perfect light side entity. Well, really, the perfect entity that would bring balance to the Force. So the Force created Anakin Skywalker not to reward the Jedi, but to correct them and the Sith. He wasn't sent to serve their order. He was sent to destroy it and start over. That's the irony of the prophecy. The Jedi think that Anakin will bring them to victory over the Sith, but George always said that that's not what balance is. He said this, and get this quote, "Balance means you have to destroy the imbalance. And the imbalance is created by the Sith, but it's also created by the Jedi when they lose compassion." That's why Anakin's destiny is so tragic. He's born from pure force, conceived without a father, an echo of the will of life itself, but he's raised by a system that misunderstands the very energy that created him. They take the living embodiment of balance and try to mold him into their image. The Force creates life, George says in the book, and when you try to control life, to stop it from changing, you go to the dark side. And that's exactly what the Jedi do to Anakin. They fear his attachments, his emotions, his love, instead of teaching him how to live with them. They teach him to suppress them. And that's how he falls. The Force gives Anakin the potential to restore harmony, but the Jedi's own imbalance twists that gift into destruction. They think balance is the absence of darkness. But George said that the Force was never about erasing the shadow. It was about coexistence. Here's this quote. "The light and the dark are two halves of the same whole," he says. "You can't destroy one without destroying the other." Now, a lot of people think that Luke was the one to fulfill the prophecy. He was merely the catalyst for Anakin to fulfill it. Because at the end of the day, Anakin is the one who killed the Emperor. And, well, kinda himself, bringing balance to the Force. When Luke refuses to kill Vader in Return of the Jedi, he achieves what Anakin couldn't. He chooses compassion over control, like I've said many times. Luke brings balance by rejecting both sides, says George, the need for power and the need for victory. He brings balance through mercy. But it all begins with Anakin. The Force created him as the response to corruption, as its last attempt to restore what had been lost. The Force doesn't choose sides, George says. It just wants balance. That's the entire meaning of the Chosen One prophecy. It's not about being the strongest or the most gifted. It's about being the vessel through which the Force can heal itself. The tragedy is that the healing comes through destruction. Anakin restores balance, but only after burning the galaxy to ashes. In George's words, that is the cost of imbalance. He says this, "When you don't deal with your shadow, it destroys everything around you." And that is the mythic core of Star Wars. The Force creates Anakin as an answer to imbalance, but because the Jedi and the Sith both misunderstand the nature of the Force and bend it to their will, one side through fear and the other through greed, the balance can only return through pain. That's why George always described the story as the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. The Force tried to heal itself through him, but healing in Star Wars doesn't come without sacrifice and, well, destruction. So Anakin's life, his rise, his fall, his redemption, is the story of the Force correcting itself, all through this one being. Indeed, he was the chosen one, but that's just unfortunate that the Jedi didn't see how he was going to bring balance to the Force. At the end of the day, it wasn't balance to the Jedi or the Sith, it was to the Force. Anakin, in essence, was its creation, it was its own weapon, and also its own wound. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like if you do like these kind of videos, and I'll be sure to make more. Check out theorysabers.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Fulfill your destiny.